This is the Kestrel Country Podcast, where we discuss the people, places, and events all around Kestrel Country. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Kestrel Country Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Church, joined here once again by my lovely wife and co-host, Catherine. It'd be helpful if I unmute it. Try again.
Hello.
Hey,
I'm here.
That's a way to get
here.
it started. She's been here. Technical difficulties. Welcome to another episode.
It's been a little bit.
Yeah, we are really not locked down at all anymore here in Idaho, which is wonderful. I think we're in phase 3 technically of reopening.
I believe so.
However, just because of busy schedules and everything else, we are coming to you from our dining room once again.
We are.
So, but it's great to be with y'all again. And we're excited, really excited. A lot of crazy things have been happening, a lot of fun. And this week we have podcast with one of our newest team members at Kestrel.
Tiffany Bentley.
Yeah, Tiffany Bentley, Natasha Summers, and Alexis Ryan all joined Kestrel this last week as part of a new team, a new real estate team here in Moscow, Idaho, called Magenta Company.
Officially a division of Kestrel Realty Group. So we talk about this in the podcast and explain what that means, what it looks like, and what kind of to expect moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been great to get to know Tiffany and Natasha and Alexis. And Tiffany's been really a rock star in the real estate world here in Moscow for a long time, brings a lot of experience and a very different style to us.
It's been really fun.
I don't remember if we really got into that much, but I have had a number of people remark over the last week since this kind of started about that difference of style. Tiffany has a very downtown, high heels, obviously the magenta color, all of that. And we have a pretty laid back rural vibe to us at Kestrel at the main office. So pretty fun, very different styles, but really the same goals of serving our clients well, of doing the right thing, taking care of people. And so it's really a fun alignment. And loving where we live.
Which is her tagline.
Yeah, that's their tagline. So as our little launch video said, when Kestrel's your guide, you'll love where you live. And that's obviously a big theme of Kestrel Country too. And
Absolutely.
This podcast is just loving where we live, learning more about where we live and who we live around in this community. So we talk kind of a little bit about all of that, but a lot of it's just allowing you guys to get to know Tiffany a little bit better. So let's get right into the interview. Tiffany, thank you again for joining us. We're excited to have you on the podcast and also excited about this new venture.
I'm super excited. Our team is super excited.
So are we.
So for those who don't know, and I'm not sure exactly when this will drop.
We'll see when this drops.
Certainly, once the announcement's made, but want to tell us a little bit about Magenta first, and then we'll back up and get into kind of how you got into real estate and all of that.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And thanks for the opportunity to be here and align with you guys. It's certainly, we feel like it's an honor to be able to bring our two visions together. I know through the course of our business with Mike and I, we're very different personalities, different approaches to real estate, but the same common core value of taking care of people, which in turn will take care of our business. So we had a vision to build a team called Magenta Company, which will encompass a couple additional realtors, but more so to some office staff. We've had some big projects recently in the last couple years that we've done in addition to helping all of our folks that are transitioning from their primary house to the next house. And so, with like the development of Barley Flats and some subdivisions and things of that nature, it just became apparent that in order to still continue to serve with the great excellence of service that we've always tried to strive for, that we needed to expand a little bit and have some more assistance on the back end so I can continue to give that personal one-on-one help to all of my clients. And also enable a couple of individuals who I think in the community are great realtors and cheer them on to success too. I always say in this community, there's enough business for everybody who wants to be driven and to help folks and add value. And so what better way than through my 17 years of success to kind of pay that forward to some people and give them some really great systems and mentorship. And so how Magenta came about was, I had this concept to build like a real team in Moscow. It's not a foreign thing, in other communities.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Teams are everywhere. You go a little bit south or a little bit north of here, and real estate teams. It's a big model that's kind of grown over probably the last 5-10 years around the country.
Yeah, they delegate so that people can really succeed in their what am I trying to say? In their elements that they truly like. Mm-hmm. Some people love working with buyers. Some love doing the marketing side. Some, so you find success within teams, but we really don't have like a real legitimate team in Moscow. You do have some, but they're more married teams. Mm-hmm. You guys would be an example of one. A few other realtors would be an example of one. But, that's a little different because you have the same financially vested interest for this, for you and your family and those sorts of things. So, we're going to call it Magenta Company. And my branding already had a little bit of flavor to it with that just pop of pink. And when I was starting to search for team names, I did not want it to be about me because with my team name, a lot of times you'll see the realtor's name as the team. And I really wanted to promote everybody equally and really strive for a collaboration of efforts. And so it kind of was a natural progression. I started looking up team names and thinking about it, and I kept coming back to the color that I had always branded myself with. And then I looked up the meaning of the word magenta because every color has its own meaning. And once I saw that, I knew immediately that was our team name because it reflected everything that I've tried to do in the community. And it talks about how it's compassion and kindness and self-respect and, just embodying a good sense of pay it forward. And so that's where it came from. And that'll be embedded in our values of our team. Yeah.
So, for people who maybe don't understand that team aspect, so like we talked about other places, essentially as a realtor, you can build a team within a brokerage. So the brokerage is the company. They're the broker responsible for all the deals and all of that. But people are more and more building these teams. So like you said, you can not just be a one-man show, but, multiply your talents and kind of have that almost business within a business, like all of us do as realtors. Yes. We're all independent contractors in this business, but being able to build that. So Magenta and Company is a team or a division, as we've been talking about, of Kestrel, which we are super excited about. So backing up a little bit, you said 17 years in the business. How did you get into real estate? Where did you grow up? How did you kind of come to that 17 years ago?
Yeah, good. Thank you. So my mom was born and raised in Troy. My grandparents had a large working farm out there. And so she grew up out there in the 50s, and they owned Bear Creek Farms.
Okay.
And out on Dry Creek, and it's still operational. Mm-hmm. And then my mom became a flight attendant back in the 60s when that was very elite.
Oh, wow.
And so over in Seattle, she was stationed in Seattle, and she met my dad, and my parents lived in Seattle. He's a retired firefighter, and then they owned car dealerships after they retired. So I just had really hard-working parents. But my dad, I always joked, could squeeze a penny till it screamed dime. And so he had this innate ability to see a piece of property over in the Seattle area that had sat on the market for like 10 years. And I'm meaning more like commercial property. And he'd buy it, as a penny. And then a year later, Costco or whoever would come along and say, I'll pay you triple for what you bought it for. And of course, my dad would say yes. So by the time I was 12, my dad, I knew very much about 1031 exchanges. And I would go to my friends' parents when they would talk about selling. And I was like, are you going to do a 1031 exchange? So here I am, this 12-year-old girl, like trying to give him, financial advice on flipping a property. And because I think my dad has ultimately done about 70 1031 exchanges in his life. And so when I was in my early 20s, I decided, I wasn't really quite sure what I wanted to do. I grew up in Seattle, and then I moved to New Mexico for a short while and went to college down there. And once my parents divorced and my mom moved back here, I thought, I'm just going to move back here and be here for a year and figure out where I want to go, what I want to be, who I want to be. And I met my husband and been here ever since. And it was the best decision I ever made. And then shortly after we got together, I just, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And the only thing that I've really known my entire life, watching my parents, is real estate. So
yeah,
it goes from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, somewhat similar story, I guess, for me. That's just kind of growing up around it, not necessarily having my dad wasn't in the real estate business, so to speak, but just always doing a lot of real estate. And I've always talked about it kind of being in my blood.
Yeah.
So, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, we bought our first duplex. We were renting it. And this is kind of what got me into real estate was I'd seen a house come on the market. And I was like, honey, I think we should buy this house. I don't want to rent forever. And by the time I got over to that house, it was already had multiple offers on it that day. And we hadn't gotten pre-approved or anything. My husband was in college. He's a graduate of the U of I. And I thought, you know what? Being the progressive person I am, I'm like, well, I'm just going to go become a real estate agent. So rather than wait for, the other opportunities to come on the market. So we ended up actually buying our duplex that we were living in. And that's how we got our start in homeownership too.
That's awesome.
And investing. Yeah.
What have you seen any major shifts, in the last 17 years in real estate? In Moscow, obviously prices are much higher than they were, all of that kind of thing. But, one of the things that we get asked a lot, I'm sure you get asked a lot too these days is, what's going to happen? What do you think? You've seen a few trends in Moscow. What are some kind of overall changes you've seen? And do you have any thoughts on the future of real estate here?
I think that I always talk about how you can watch. We're usually a year behind the national trend, so it's always, and the fact that we're in a university town combined with the fact that you have another university just 5 miles away, usually protects our little economy pretty safely in the sense that you have, a very diverse population that lives here. You usually have constant influx of, professors or grad students, and those people are also buying homes nowadays. And so, but the basis, I think, of all of that is people love our community, and once they come here, they usually don't want to leave. No. And so the fact that once you get people who love their community, that's where the stability in your community comes from, is really people wanting to invest in it, and not just kind of taking it for what it can give and then move on.
Not just here for a job, but figuring out you want to live here, so how do we make it work?
Yeah,
kind of idea.
I mean, it's more about, embedding yourself in the lifestyle of what this community affords. Because if you are a person that, wants great shopping or certain things, this obviously isn't going to be your community. But for those that want to know your neighbors and to support local and to support other businesses, this is exactly where you belong. And so, and I think people feel that as soon as they get here. And so I think that our real estate economy has always been really stable. We didn't see a decline when the prices came down across the nation in 2008. We just saw them kind of flatline a little bit. And being a very modest investor myself, I'm not the kind that, puts a money on aggressive stocks. I would say it's always a safe bet in our community to invest in housing. It's generally the thing that will always stabilize our country too. is investing in the housing economy. And so I think that highs and lows we don't generally see here, but people watch the national news, and so I think just supporting them and recognizing that investment that they're making, it's one of their biggest assets, it is going to pay dividends to them in the long run, whether that be an investment into their family, their finances, or their community.
You mentioned, sorry, jumping around a lot, but you mentioned, people knowing their neighbors, loving living here and that kind of thing. Is that what kind of solidified it for you, attracted you to end up staying here? Because you thought, well, I'll just come back here for a little bit. What kind of made you, aside from meeting your husband here in town and everything, what made you really fall in love with the community, and what are some things you love about it?
Yeah, one thing I love about Moscow is, I always tell people this, is it's small enough that you know your neighbors. You may not know them intimately, like they may not be your closest of friends, but you can go into the grocery store, and I don't care where you go, whether it be the dollar store, Winco, Walmart, or sitting down at a restaurant, you see familiar faces, and I find so much comfort in that. It just reminds me that it takes a village to raise a family, and it's so true. Like, I'll never forget the story. My stepdaughter had just gotten her driver's license, and she rolled through a stop sign at 3rd and Blaine Street, and we lived kind of a little bit on the outskirts of town at that time. And by the time she got home, I had 2 clients that were friends that had texted me that said, "Hey, nice roll through of your daughter at the stop sign." So when she walked in the door, I said, "Oh, so you kind of forgot that little stop sign on 3rd and Blaine." And she's like, "How did you know that?" And so that's kind of the thing I love about this town is that, and I stayed for my mom, honestly. My mom was here, and, who knew at the time that, I wouldn't have as much time with my mom as we all hope. And so I think there was a little bit of divine intervention there too. And she was the biggest cheerleader for every kid in town. And so it just, those two just married, really, honestly, in how I stayed here. I can't imagine living anywhere else now.
No. I think it's an interesting theme, having done these interviews for a few people. That is so common. We ask someone, we were just coming for a little bit, and they get stuck, and it is, Moscow's community pulls people in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you grew up here.
I grew up here.
So
yes, it's true.
Yeah, you've got a little bit of a different perspective on it.
I do. And as a kid growing up here, actually being able to see the change, you see how Moscow's downtown has improved,
Yes.
how ugly corners in town keep getting better.
Yep.
And people are putting money into the community and loving their spots and loving these old buildings. And I like to see that. It's so fun to be able to see, these exciting changes happen. And they're good changes. We don't want to be stuck with something that's falling apart and, just simply because it's old.
And I love the fact that it's moderate growth. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? We're not going to necessarily grow so big because people are so sensitive about just maintaining this small town charm, but yet still affording some of the conveniences, because Lord knows I love Marshalls here. So, but
well, I think that the farming, I think, provides a lot of that
yes.
too. That very stable small town feel. Yet it's a fun, unique space to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in terms of real estate, what are some of the things you most enjoy about it? So you got into it kind of originally maybe for your own investing, for some, that was maybe the original motivation. What are your favorite things about doing real estate in this town?
Well, one of my biggest honors is just always being invited into somebody's home. It's such an honor, and it's a big vote of trust, right? Because our home is literally our treasure boxes, because it's where we build all of our memories. And so for somebody to decide, for whatever reason, that they want you to come in and potentially assist them with selling, I hold that in a really high regard, because it's our personal space, and we all like our privacy, and so for that, I always find that such an honor. Whether they decide not to sell or to sell, I always thank them for inviting me into their home, because that's just what it is. It's their home, and because I never look at that I'm just selling houses. I could do that in any community, but the thing I enjoy the most is really guiding people, because buying a home should be fun, and they talk about how it's one of the most stressful things that you do in the course of your life, and it should be a little bit stressful in the sense that you're making a huge financial decision.
It's a big deal, yeah.
Right.
So if you're just jumping in willy-nilly and you're not really thinking about it,
Right.
chances are you don't have a lot of good steps in place to have a good foundation for that investment. So a little bit of stress is great, but it also should be fun and exciting to be a homeowner. And so just the ability to kind of go through everybody's steps of life. I've helped first-time home buyers who are so excited, and then I've helped the estate sales where that transition, that's hard, and just walking them through those times and getting them on the right path to being able to sell the home, and or helping people invest for the first time. So really it's less about the houses, because I always say if I thought of myself as a salesperson, I would quit this job today. I just feel like I'm more about trying to guide people on their journey through the different steps of life, and just the trust that the people that I've worked with have entrusted me with. So I'd say that that's honestly just the biggest blessing, more than my favorite thing. I guess it's one and the same.
Yeah. Well, again, I feel like I'm jumping around so much, but that's what happens in my brain. Tell us a little bit about Barley Flats.
Oh,
Because you mentioned that at the beginning,
did.
and that's a super exciting thing.
Well,
And
and it's a change for Moscow. That was something new and different.
yeah, tell us about how that came about and what's the future for that Barley Flats district. And I guess a lot of people don't even know, where is it? What was it? Can you give us kind of the history there?
yes, huge project that most people don't recognize, all the work that goes into it behind the scenes. So I had the opportunity to work with the Bloom family on a piece of ground, and I sold them a piece of ground where they're building some family housing out on Indian Hills. Okay. And we had never done another deal together, but meanwhile, I just every year just kind of kept sending him a thank you card for the business, and he comes to me one day, and he sits down in my office and asks to sit with me, Noel Bloom. If any of you have ever met him, he's the most adorable man. He always comes in flannel, and if you've seen my office, it's got magenta chairs. And they were the first chairs, or he was the first client to sit in the chairs, and I kind of waffled like, God, do I buy these magenta chairs because our client's going to want to sit in them? And then Noel Bloom happens to walk into my office that day. And I always tell this story, and I go, and he's sitting in the chair, and he started to talk to me about this project. I said, I just have one quick question for you. Do you feel like a man sitting in these chairs? And he goes, no, not at all, but they're damn comfy. And so it was like the best meeting with him. And so he sits down and he says, so I just bought this ground today, Tiffany, and everybody in town is telling me what to do with this property, but the only opinion I want to hear is yours. What would you do with this property? Huge shout out for just the years of my service. And so I said, well, I would build condos with elevators. My mom had resided in the Ambassador and loved it, which Gary Tribble built back when he was 25, and when the interest rates skyrocketed to 18%. And so it was the only building like it in Moscow. And so we just kept talking about it and building content and jumped right in. So it's great. And I really tried to embody the history of what was there, which was the grain elevators, the seed company, which is how Barley Flats came to be of the name, because they actually specialized very, very early on in the early 1900s. They had figured out a way to process barley called pearl barley, and then they would ship it overseas to the troops. And it's kind of like instant oatmeal today.
Wow.
So that's how it came about.
So my grandfather worked there.
Oh,
He worked in the P mill.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's
Did he
special.
Was he manager?
He was the floor manager, I believe. And so, yeah, it's a special spot for us too.
Yeah, A and Allman.
yep, A&M Almond.
The old grain elevators there. Well, and I mean, it's a tiny connection, but I always love it. My parents built their house a couple years ago, and it was at the time when they were tearing down those old buildings, and so they got a bunch of wood from it and created the bar top in their
Nice.
house. So a little piece of that P mill and that history, but Yeah. So one building's gone up.
Yep,
right?
there's 12 units per building. You've got the garage is on the main floor, and then you've got the elevators. And it's like it's been such a learning process for me, even and for the Bloom family. Just the elevator alone is $140,000. So when you talk about affordable housing and cost, I think the amenities that the building has to offer, if you look at all those, they're huge square footage. You've got garages, you've got elevators, low maintenance. You can walk to downtown, and just really kind of have downtown Moscow as your backyard. And we found a mixture of people for the uses. You've got the working professional, and then you've got the retirees. So, and then next spring we'll probably start the second building, just as we did this one, and then migrate to the third when we're done. So there'll be a
total of 3.
Yep, 36 units. So, and then we tried to bring in, so the original owners of that site were Washburn and Wilson. So each building is named, one's Wilson, one's Washburn, and then the last owner, Dumas, that's the third building.
Okay.
Oh, that's really fun.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun that history, especially that agricultural history of this area is so important to keep that heritage, and that's fun. That's a fun shout out, and what an interesting thing too, to have something that is so rooted in this agriculture history, and now it's kind of a downtown condo. It's cool to see that progression.
Yeah, we really tried to bring that in. We went to the Historical Society and spent hours going through their photos, and so lining the hallways of each of down the halls to each unit. It's got the historical site photos of the site through its years, and so I think it's going to be really great. We've had great success. So we were able to start marketing those mid-November, which, as we know, that's not our typical spring market time. And then it was just starting to really pick up, and then the COVID kind of quiet down. But we just have a few units left, so not bad.
Awesome.
No, exciting.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Good.
Well,
Anything else?
Any other?
And Mike came to the open house.
Yeah.
I did. Well, it was awesome.
Yeah, your whole team came, so that
Very
was
cool.
exciting.
Yeah, we're excited about that project. It's fun. I think just having so many options, it kind of reminds me of a bit of this whole town and this whole area, really, because you have such variety in such a small space.
Yeah.
It's one of the things I love about Moscow. Variety of restaurants, like you were saying, variety of people, just all kinds of things. Variety of geography. Within a short drive here, you have everything from the mountains to the Palouse rolling hills to the canyon country, and then now we have options for housing, everything from downtown condos to
rugged,
40-acre pieces close to town. It's just there is something for everybody here.
Yeah, it fits everybody's flavor.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, and I wanted to ask you a question. Like, what are you, because I've watched you in my course of business, and you're one of I always say in business, we can all advocate for our client, but it never has to come at the expense of kindness and respect with our peers and our colleagues. And that's one thing that you and I have always done a really good job on, is just maintaining that like elite relationship, in amongst the transactions, even when we've had some tough ones, where we've had septic systems fail, and it still came out where everybody was happy and thanking and shaking hands, and that doesn't normally happen. But like, what are you most proud of in building your brand of Kestrel?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I think I think part of why I think this new venture really works well is that we do have that shared idea. And I think there's a couple things. I think back to my dad, my grandfather, and the way that they do business. They were always in business for themselves, and real estate was always kind of on the side thing. But one thing my grandfather always said was, it pays to keep your nose clean, and like reputation is super important. And I think some of it is just also that knowing that you will continue to do business, especially in a small town, with other realtors, with the clients, other people's clients. It's just, we are in this community together. And so having that level of advocating, like you said, for your clients, and of course you put their needs first, but we want to have everyone at the end of the day be happy with the outcome as much as possible. It's something that I actually try to do as well with the clients, because it's easy. One complaint about realtors sometimes is it's like, well, you guys are just in the middle. Like, if we could just talk, the buyer and seller, and then, but you guys just make, and I think there can be some truth to that if realtors are over exaggerating, or, like you as a kind of middleman of sorts can either exasperate things or calm people down and figure out solutions. Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
And so I always try to it's like, no, for example, no offer is insulting. You get an offer, don't be insulted by it. Somebody's making you an offer on your house.
Yeah,
like, this is a good thing, And it's like, and thinking that way and trying to, instead of, oh man, they're just lowballing you to, no, let's take a step back. Let's think this through, look from other people's perspectives, and try to come together, get a deal together that's a win-win for people. That's, at the end of the day, that's a big part of our job. So.
And I think that, I think you're right. Some people have that misconception that if we could just talk, but a lot of people, because this is their biggest asset, they kind of need that sounding board, of an agent, a good agent, to say, is this a good investment? Because I'm of the motto, if I wouldn't advise my mom or my sister or my brother to invest in this home or this property, then I wouldn't advise my client the same.
Absolutely.
And so, to have that, I have so many systems in place to try and not have, kind of drama or fires, whatever you want to call it, in my files, so that this can be an enjoyable experience. But while it's nice to be able to talk to the person directly, it's also nice to be like, is this a good idea? Is this a good investment? What kind of returns is this going to give me? Or, what can I do to improve it? Because those are questions you can't really ask the homeowner of, like,
yeah,
because it's their castle, and then these new people want to make it their castle. So, and just having that third party, I think, is a good idea, in the sense of just having that comfort level with their investments. But yeah, you and I, we both see that in our industry of, my role is not to help them choose a home. It's to make it a smooth process to get them to the finish line.
Yeah, well, and today people can find houses. That's one of the interesting things that's changed in our business.
Yeah,
is it used to be you really did have to help people find homes, and we do that. Obviously, homes that are off market, we do that kind of work of literally finding something. But so many times, now people can find houses online, right? There's Zillow, there's all. So you're not really, helping them necessarily find a home. You're helping them, like you said, make that happen. You're helping them get it done.
And advisors, and you're looking at pitfalls. I mean, you think through what a lawyer's job is when you're seeking to set something up, and you go for protection, you go for their ability to look at the back of your head and see the things you don't know or don't even know to look for.
Or just you said a couple different times, the guide, right? That's a big part of our branding is let us be your guide. And that's a big part. Is just I kind of one day was thinking about it, and what do I spend a lot of my time doing? Is answering people's questions about what should I do. Yeah, people call me, hey, Mike, whether it's about real estate or not, like, hey, who should I talk to about getting my gutters cleaned, or what, but people call you up and just ask a question. What should I do about X, Y, or Z? And that's really, it sounds cliche to say, like, well, we enjoy helping people. Well, but that is what we do. We help people answer those questions and figure out which way should I go as it relates to their real estate.
Yeah, for sure. You've seen an enormous shift in the industry. I remember one of the funniest stories I ever told was when I was pregnant with my first baby. I was 9 months pregnant, because back then we would show, so she's 11, so that's not too much time, but we would show a slew of houses. You'd show 10, 15 houses. Well, back then I was 9 months pregnant, and it was super hot outside, and I showed 27 houses in 6 hours.
Oh, my word.
27 in 6 hours.
And that didn't send you into labor?
Oh, yeah, it should have.
We don't even have 27 houses
Not
these
now.
days on the market. Times are different.
The gentleman came with a clipboard, and we literally took notes of every single house, and we pull up to the 18th house, and he says, this is the house I told my wife we'd buy. Sure enough, that's the house they bought. I wish we would have just shown one house, not 27. But nowadays, because people have the ability to, so social media marketing from a real estate perspective is so important, because people are so educated nowadays. They can go and find and whittle it down just with virtual tours and those sorts of things. So our job is less about showing the houses, but really, just guiding them. I say I'm in the job of networking. It's you need a plumber, you need an electrician, and really just networking them to the people and getting them to that end goal and making it smooth. So
yeah, well, when you mentioned that, the virtual tours, the social media marketing, I think that's one of the hidden blessings that's coming out of this whole shutdown COVID thing.
For sure.
Is that, it's like, why weren't we more earlier saying, no, you know what? I can't just show you a ton of houses. You're going to have to look at them online, watch the videos, figure out which ones are, because so many times you show somebody a house and they're like, oh, well, I didn't realize that, it was blue. Like, I'm just not, like, how did you not know it was blue? Like, look online. That's an exaggeration. But just some of those things of whittling things down, really like, well, once you're a little more serious about this, because people are letting you into their homes. Mm-hmm. Now it's more accentuated because of the virus and that kind of thing. But even before that, it's like, we've talked about it. You made some mom clean up the whole house and get ready and grab her kids and put them in the car and go. And then you're not going to see it because of something that you could have seen online,
or square footage,
and
or
it's
whatever.
like just having that respect for the sellers as well. And
it's a lot
hopefully
of work.
that
It's
will
a lot of work to prep the house. So
hopefully some of that will kind of stick
and
as
I
we
know
move forward.
When we were selling our own house, I told my husband he was the worst client I've ever had. I said, because the realtor would be pulling out of the driveway and he's like, do you got feedback yet? Did they like the house? I'm like, their front tires are still in our driveway, sweetheart. Like, I don't know yet. So prepping a house is super hard. And, you have to kind of be mentally prepared for that journey. But kind of going back to that coronavirus thing that you talked about, what I think we're also going to see is that you've seen what I think is an enormous shift in our country that statistically, if you see, people are happier to work from home. Businesses have less cost for bricks and mortar. They have less sick time. I mean, they just show productivity in their employees by having the ability to work from home. And so I think that this has shown companies who were maybe a little more, tunnel vision of you got to come into the office to produce. I think you're going to see small town Moscow and other communities across the nation, their housing is going to become even more so stabilized because companies have figured out a way that their employees can work from home and be productive. And so you're going to probably see a little bit of migration out of the bigger cities, and so which will stabilize our economy even more so.
Yeah. I mean, if you can work from anywhere, why wouldn't you want to live in Moscow?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's great. Thank you so much again for joining us, and we're really excited to have Magenta & Company and you and your team with Kestrel, and can't wait to kind of see how it grows and what happens next.
It's going to be a great alignment. We are super excited. So, and we'll come out with some co-branded marketing just so you can all be introduced to the new team, and we're just super excited to align and do some great community events and collaborate on those. I think that's really the heart of what Mike and I and Catherine are really trying to do here is to just dig a little deeper and invest in our community.
Yep, absolutely. Well, thanks, Tiffany.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you next week.